What's up, guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muckraker. My name's Michelle. Today is May 31st of 2023, and last Saturday there was a Gotion rally to protest the EV battery plant coming to Green Charter Township, and I heard it was a great success. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, but there are plenty of pictures and videos, and so I'm going to share some of those with you today. I hope that the live stream is going. YouTube right now, for some reason, is messing up, and so I'm not sure if it's live or not, but hopefully we are. I wanted to share also a video from MIGardener at the end of this to show you just how crazy the EGLE regulations are and how if this Gotion project does go through, it doesn't make much sense. EGLE picks and chooses, of course, which companies can build and which cannot. So we're going to jump in to the protest first and foremost. Also, wanted to say Saturday night I went on to Red Pill News over on Rumble, Red Pill 78. Zach actually had me on his live podcast, and I appreciate the opportunity immensely. 42,000 people have seen it so far, which is amazing. That awareness being spread is more than I could hope for. One of the commenters actually said something about living in the thumb of Michigan and having no clue about this project. And so now, hopefully, that individual will tell 10 people, and those 10 people will tell 10 people, and that's how we can change what's going on, right? More Davids against this Goliath. So thank you again to Zach from Red Pill News. I will link that video down below if you want to check it out. I thought it went really well. It was the first time that I've ever been on someone else's live podcast, and I have to say I do prefer talking to somebody else. My husband and I were talking, maybe we could do a podcast with us in the future soon, and see how that goes. So if you're interested in something like that, let me know in the comments down below. But anyway, we'll get back into this. Farmers protest Gotion battery plant Saturday. Vehicles decked out in no Gotion signs. Some good pictures here, but I'm going to go here. We were going to just drive around the Gotion section. Lori Brock, this is the individual that is fighting Gotion. She lives right across the street, has the majestic Frisian horse farm, and so they staged, I believe, at her property, but they were going around the Gotion site. We are going to do this for 5 hours because there are a lot of people that can only make it at different times. We are just trying to show how much the community does not want this here. And I have a video to show you here in a minute. I just wanted to right here. In the news release from what's called the Big Rapids Grassroots Organizers, a coalition of Mecosta and neighboring county residents united in opposition to the Gotion battery plant project, said local farmers in Mecosta County, Marshall, and agricultural communities across West Michigan are angry that prime Michigan farmland is being sold to a partial Chinese-owned company to be developed into battery facilities. Protester and local farmer Brian Finkbeiner said there is no good reason to be selling any of our land to China, let alone our richest farmland. I agree. Gotion, North America. I like how they're doing that now. Gotion, North America. Vice President Chuck Thelen made the following statement in response to the protests. The website of this event's organizers links to several out-of-town groups on the left and right. Is that who's really behind all this? That would explain a lot, because true local residents know the truth. Gotion Inc. is an American company that's bringing thousands of new jobs to this community and will be great neighbors to the people who live here. One thing the people of Mecosta County don't need is more outside groups coming here to spread more lies. This quote is ridiculous, and for obvious reasons. Define local residents. I don't reside in Green Charter Township, but I go shopping in Big Rapids. I live on the Muskegon River. Am I considered a local resident? And not only that, but this is a Michigander problem because this is taxpayer dollars that all Michiganders paid into that are being utilized to help Gotion buy this land. So every Michigander should be concerned and has a right to voice their opposition if they so choose. It doesn't have to just be local residents, but again, define a local resident. And we local residents do know the truth. Gotion, obviously, there's no environmental impact report. Why? We are worried. We've done the risk reward analysis, okay? We're not stupid. The local residents know what we are doing, and we don't want Gotion. You need to get that through your thick skull, okay? There is not so much as a single acre of rich farmland being considered for the project, Thelen said. The large majority of property is zoned industrial and covered in invasive brush species. The large majority of the property is zoned industrial. So what is the other zoning? It's agricultural. So how can you say in the same paragraph there's not as much as a single acre of rich farmland when it's not all zoned industrial? And I like how he says invasive brush species. Like, it's not wetlands and there's no reason to protect this area. It's all obviously subterfuge, lies. I got more to share about Chuck Thelen here in a second, but I wanted to show you this. This is the rally, this video. Thank you to Keep Michigan Pure. They have a lot of great stuff over on Facebook to keep up with Gotion if you're interested. Thank you guys for joining me, by the way. If you like this, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Nice tractor. I like the singing, whoever that is. I'm sorry that I wasn't there. I heard that they had a great time, and I'm proud of my community. I hope there's many more rallies and that I will be attending majority of them. Looks like it's a pretty good line. So thank you to everybody who showed up there, took the time on the Memorial Day weekend. Somebody's getting a phone call. Very cool. Let's see. Nice. Again, there's a lot of pictures on Keep Michigan Pure, so I would definitely check those out. One more thing to share from the Big Rapids Pioneer. This came out May 11th, but there's a few things in it that are new to me. So Gotion VP responds to Mecosta ARC location concerns. The Mecosta Animal Rescue Coalition announced it no longer accept cats. On May 8th, the Rescue Center shared the news via a press release, which brought response from the area. The press release stated, "We had hoped that this would not happen, since Gotion has performed absolutely no environmental impact studies, despite all the wildlife and wetlands that will be destroyed. But it appears they will begin bulldozing in July. We are devastated for our community." At the bottom of this, it says September, or not September, fall, which I just think of September when I think fall. A common concern voiced by some opponents has been a request for an environmental impact report. Chuck Thelen says there is not one single overreaching environmental study that happens for something like this. You have to meet several different legs of the stool to get it authorization. As I mentioned, air quality, water quality, stormwater, detention, these types of things They are all necessary requirements, Thelen explained. Well, we haven't seen any type of information on that. According to John Whetstone, a Gotion public relations representative, Animal Rescue Coalition was made an offer that Gotion would buy it a new property of at least 10 acres. So I did not know that. They offered, their current site is 3 to 4 acres. So they're trying to bribe them to move. And of course, it's taxpayer dollars that are going to be paying for that. Thelen told the Pioneer on May 10th that Arrow had neither accepted nor denied the offer at that point. I cannot disclose all the details of the offer because that's private and I will not violate her privacy, Thelen said. She currently has a very small piece of property and she counts on walking her animals into the neighbor's property. She has mentioned that she needs a place to walk the dogs, so we had secured an option on a property that was much larger than what she currently has so that she could take her animals and do what she needs to for her rescue coalition and walking the dogs. We see her complaints in the media in the last couple weeks, which lends me to believe that she is not accepting our offer. I'm sure that they've pulled the offer now because she's complained. With that, we will not claim any kind of eminent domain. We will not force any sale. That is not who we are. That's not what we're about. If she does not wish to sell, then we completely respect her privacy. We'll see about that. We shall see. The fact that he even mentions eminent domain is telling, in my opinion. They considered it. The groundbreaking for the site will depend on the permit submission and approval from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, which typically takes 3 to 5 months, according to Thelen. The first step is to level out all the locations within the facility. We are currently designing how the pads of the building will sit on the property, and once all that work is done, we will hire architectural, engineering, and general contracting firms. They will hire local contractors for earth moving, laying of gas lines, laying of water lines, and all these types of things. Yes, Gotion is trying to buy our land. This is from the Animal Coalition. And has offered to buy us land at another location, the Post read. We have been trying to navigate the changing timeline and changing locations for a few months now. We are hoping that it will work out for us to move, but we certainly cannot stay in our current location if the battery plant starts groundbreaking. Gotion is hoping to have a groundbreaking by the beginning of fall this year. So I thought it was July 1st. I believe that was from Chuck Thelen himself, but this is saying beginning of fall, which is all right with me. That just means we have more time to rally the troops, rally up, and get more Davids to fight this Goliath. So that's fine. I don't want any groundbreaking whatsoever. I want them gone. So I have faith that we can do this. The next thing I want to share with you is the Muskegon River Watershed Assembly. Okay, they are involved. I have a video I'm going to share with you real quick. This is Chuck Thelen, the representative for Gotion.
Manufacturing environment. So as I mentioned, we're collaborating with the Muskegon River Watershed Authority. I got their email today thanking me for the invite and the conversation yesterday, and they stated with everything we just said, they have absolutely no concern with the materials being processed in this facility. I do owe them a copy of the SESs and a copy of the summary of the presentation. They will get that by the end of the week, as will the Green Township Board.
So there you have it. According to Chuck Thelen, the Muskegon River Watershed Assembly sees no issue. However, a local resident who has been doing her due diligence and has been an amazing muckraker herself has asked for comment from the Muskegon River Watershed Assembly, and they said that that's not true, what Chuck Thelen said, and that they're actually getting a press release together as we speak. There was some confusing things going on with who this individual talked to that was part of the board. At first said that it was going to be on the agenda for the last meeting, which just happened like 2 weeks ago, I believe. But it was not. So the next meeting is Monday, June 19th, 5:30 p.m. So we need to try to get as many people as possible to this board meeting so that we can get answers and find out exactly what they said and how they feel about Gotion, because they're supposed to be protecting the Muskegon River. If you go back here, it says the Muskegon River Watershed Assembly is dedicated to the preservation, protection, restoration, and sustainable use of the Muskegon River, the land it drains, and the life it supports through educational, scientific, and conservation initiatives. But, of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they have been taken over, unfortunately. And then they're also linked with Ferris State University. And we all know by now Dr. Bill Pink is involved with Whitmer and is involved with Gotion. And so there's a lot of connections here we have to be aware of. That's not to say that everybody that works at the Muskegon River Watershed Assembly is captured, so to speak. But Scott Faulkner is the, he's the executive director. And he definitely is he's on the team of Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Right here it says he has served in a position as the Economic and Community Development Coordinator for the city of Newaygo. And he has said that he believes the river needs to go back to its natural flow, which is a United Nations idea where dams are unsustainable. So he's all about sustainable development, is what I'm trying to say. So he is supposedly going to get a press release together. We need to look out for that. But just make sure you put that date in the calendar. Where is it? June 19th. Once again, 5:30 p.m. I will be there. So I hope to see you there. I want to know what they have to say, and I'll be looking out for that press release. The next thing I want to share, I just found this Economic Development Responsibility Alliance. From Big Rapids Gotion plant to the Marshall site, we're Michiganders fighting to protect our farmland and our watersheds. So I thought this website was really good. It, I believe, dropped last week. I'll, again, have the link in the description. But we are a grassroots alliance of stewards of our land and water, united in our purpose to hold captured regulatory agencies accountable and to stop corrupt deals by taxpayer-funded economic development corporations from destroying our communities, our wild spaces, and our water, so that a few may profit. As Michiganders, we are stewards of the Great Lakes watershed, our nation's most precious natural resource. Our highest priority is preserving this incredible heritage for generations to come. Great picture here, grassroots movement. Erin Brockovich, my mom, and my dad taught me the greatest gifts we have are our family, our health, and the right to clean water and good land. Absolutely. So I highly recommend that you check out all the information on this website. I'm going to read this really quick because I think it's important. What economic developers are supposed to do. Economic Development Corporations, or EDCs, were initially designed and implemented as nonprofit organizations that promote economic development within a targeted geographic area for a targeted purpose without profiting off the venture. Take, for example, a blighted urban community with high crime and no grocery stores nearby, where a standard developer would find the prospect of building a grocery store here too problematic and unprofitable. An economic development corporation could, likely with the help of city taxpayers, develop a grocery store to benefit the community. Or an EDC might help provide funding for a local tool and die shop to upgrade its equipment in order to stay competitive with multinational competitors. State and local officials modified this model into a public-private EDC, which is partially funded by taxpayers, but partially funded by businesses and private donors. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation and the Right Place are both such public-private EDCs. These types of EDCs are under the same mission as the purely public kind, to uplift communities by supporting targeted development without profit, but with more cash to work with to be able to do bigger projects. Michigan has experienced the influence of such economic development since 2008. Imagine that, right after the crash, when the globalists started sucking up all the properties in the form of the MEDC's Pure Michigan campaign, which is also the slogan for MEDC. The Pure Michigan campaign received $45 million in public funding in 2008 under Governor Granholm and has since maintained annual advertising budget of $20 million a year. For over 30 years, under the leadership of CEO Birgit Coles, the Right Place provided exactly the type of service a good EDC is supposed to. They made small, targeted investments in manufacturers and small to mid-sized businesses in the greater Grand Rapids area. But in 2021, Ms. Coles retired and was replaced with a new CEO named Randy Thelen. What they are actually doing, the Right Place and MEDC, more closely resembles a welfare agent for billionaires and unvetted foreign investments than it does nonprofit EDC making targeted investments to benefit communities. From over $600 million for the wasteful, unwanted District Detroit to $715 million for Gotion, EV, and Big Rapids to $630 million for the Cattle, CATYL, EV, and Marshall, which is Chinese, by the way, to similar investments all over the state, these public-private ECDs have strayed far from their mission with billions in tax dollars in hand. Absolutely true. Again, I'll leave the description. Recommend checking this out. The other thing I wanted to share, recently uncovered property records show Green Township trustee who voted to bring Communist China-controlled the Gotion battery plant to Michigan reportedly owns large chunk of property on proposed site. This has to do with Jernstadt. This is the piece of property that he owns. Mecosta County property records show Jernstadt has a 72-acre parcel at the corner of 18 Mile Road and 220th Avenue in Green Charter Township. According to the County Register of Deeds, he obtained a mortgage on the property in 2012 for $180,000. Come down here. Strangely, even though Jernstadt knew he should abstain from voting on the Gotion battery proposal because he would personally profit from selling his land, he chose to vote in the township's December meeting. Resolution 01-122-022 was proposed to the board as a resolution to support Gotion, Inc., and they're bringing their industrial project to Green Charter Township. Jernstadt voted affirmatively, along with 6 of his fellow board members, as seen on the meeting minutes from December 13th. So he was not supposed to vote, and yet he did. Sources tell the Midwesterner properties intended for the project are being put under contract for significantly more than they're worth. One owner, who has over 175 acres, is allegedly being paid $15 million. Another with 72 acres is allegedly being paid $20 million. According to local realtor broker Rhonda Lang, these prices per acre are incredibly bloated. Well, imagine that. Since cited, excuse me, a 50.7 acre parcel near the site with a cabin on it listed for $249,000 and a 59 parcel with 800 feet of Muskegon River frontage selling for $425K. Lang also cited a recent sale of 149 acres, roughly 3.5 miles from Gotion, at $665,000. I mean, that is crazy that you get footage on the Muskegon River and it's $425,000. $20 million. Wow. Local residents would like clarification on whether or not Jernstadt was profiting from insider knowledge of the project, and if he has personally signed a non-disclosure agreement with Gotion or the state. Right, how long has he known? How many times has he voted on things and helped put this into place, this project into Green Charter Township, and he was selling his property? How long? However, there are vast concerns over the restrictive non-disclosure agreements that are in place and currently provide secrecy around the project. Former ambassadors Pete Hoekstra and Joseph Sulla have asked the DOJ to conduct an investigation of Gotion, Inc. and Michigan officials who they believe may be violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Thank you to both of these individuals. They pointed out that there's a lack of transparency from the outset. From the outset of this project, due diligence, strict scrutiny, and transparency have been woefully lacking. They wrote, many legitimate questions from elected officials and citizens alike remain, particularly involving the national security threat presented by this company based in the People's Republic of China, which maintains ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Unfortunately, to advance the proposed project, officials in the state of Michigan who are directly engaged with Gotion Inc. are shielding themselves from these questions through the binding and punitive 5-year non-disclosure agreements, justifying the secrecy on account of competition, saying they are commonplace with such economic developments. They continued, the speed and secrecy which officials in the state of Michigan have operated with state and local leaders imperils our national security and must be given the strictest of scrutiny through both a CIFIS review and an investigation to ascertain if FARA has been violated. So, several different angles that we're trying to fight this project. It ain't over till it's over, and I appreciate everybody's hard work. And I love how everybody has a different thing that they're focusing on and trying to figure out what's going on. McLean, Gotion Factory, an attempt to overtake Michigan. This came out May 24th, 2023, and this is Capital Confidential, which is, I think, a more libertarian, if you're going to talk about biases. It's, small government, which I think is why I like the site. No secret, I'm for teeny tiny government. Teeny, teeny, tiny. The CCP is not our friend, says Michigan rep on the floor of Congress. Michigan lawmakers have approved nearly $800 million in tax abatements and cash incentives for the forthcoming Gotion plant in Big Rapids. But the deal is still on the tips of tongues among the state's congressional delegation. First up, Rep. John James introduced the No American Tax Dollars to CCP bill in April. The bill would prohibit public giveaways for battery components manufactured or assembled by corporations associated with foreign entities of concern, a restriction that would have prevented Michigan's incentives to Gotion, a company with Chinese Communist Party ties. Then last week, Rep. McLean of Bruce Township took to the House floor to speak out against the deal. I don't know how long that is. McLean called the Gotion deal a blatant attempt to overtake our state and added in remarks published in the Congressional Record, the CCP is using one of their state-controlled companies to implant thousands of Chinese workers and billions worth of Chinese tech just outside of Big Rapids. Gotion is bought and paid for by the CCP, and let's be clear, the CCP is not our friend. Pictured below is the full context of the speech, which was titled Gotion, bought and paid for by the CCP. So, thank you, McLean, for what you're doing. I appreciate everybody fighting the way that they can. I'm going to say no thanks. Okay. This is from Substack, and if you have not ever been on Substack, I highly recommend. I think it's one of the best social media platforms that you can get information from. So this is Bruce's newsletter. To globalist traders, Biden, Dingle, hopefully that's right, Whitmer, and Granholm, stop EV production in the United States now. Village idiot Biden and his merry band of climate change retards. Climate scam. Vaccine genocide, COVID scam. Honestly, if you look into the climate, the Green New Deal, it is terrible for private property. It's terrible for America. Summary, please widely share. EVs make no sense. They do not improve the environment and will fund China's military, which will eventually be used to invade the United States. It is time to stop feeding the stupid climate change beast. Our politicians are selling us out to communist China. It is glaringly obvious that Biden's climate change agenda is really not about solving the climate problem. This became clear yesterday when Kennedy cross-examined Biden's climate change advocates. They have absolutely no idea how much money it will take to become carbon neutral. We need to ask ourselves why carbon neutrality is the goal. The fact is you could spend $50 trillion on climate change and there would be no reduction in CO2. More than likely, the real goal of climate change agenda is to impose globalist Great Reset on the entire human population. This is very long. I'm not going to get into the entire thing. This is basically a summary of why EV batteries are not the future. They will not be the future. The technology is not renewable, and so there is no reason that we should be investing our taxpayer dollars into this and trying to bring this Gotion facility to Michigan at all anyway. It's just because Michigan Governor Whitmer has sold us out to the World Economic Forum, and they want this type of technology here, not we, the people of the United States of America. Michigan has given the EV industry $1.4 billion and counting. This is out of reason. Car makers don't need a crony capitalist slush fund. I absolutely agree. December 2021, the Michigan Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed legislation establishing the Strategic Outreach and Attraction Reserve, the SOAR program, a $1 billion economic development fund to ensure the state can compete for billions of dollars in investment and attract tens of thousands of jobs to bolster our economy. Hey, Pilot, sorry I didn't see that. I need to move my chat so that way I can actually see it. There we go. Thank you for joining me. Sorry I saw that so late. Hopefully you're still in here. Where was I? Michigan legislature okay. An initial $1 billion for the program. SOAR grants would be dispersed to companies that invested in the state or to state affiliated entities for the benefit of those companies. All transfers would require approval, first from the State Senate Appropriations Committee and then from the entire legislature. In practice, SOAR just contributes further to a growing trend of corporate welfare, in which states give away huge chunks of taxpayer money to private companies. Michigan's example should prove to taxpayers and state governments alike that private companies alone should bear the costs of their own development projects. Now, people always say, well, how are we going to get businesses here? How are we going to remain competitive in Michigan? You know, all these businesses are going other places. So we need to incentivize. You know how you incentivize? Lower taxes. It's really simple. Stop with all of the permits and the government hoops that you have to jump through. It's because too much government. Government is too big here in Michigan that businesses don't want to come and deal with it. And that's what we need to take away. We need to make the government smaller and businesses will want to come. Lower taxes. Not give away money, because what's happening, once again, is that the centralized government is picking and choosing who comes here. And if we lower taxes, the free market would, right? According to the spreadsheet provided to Reason by the Michigan Department of Technology Management and Budget, the state has apportioned, I don't even know that word, I've never seen that word, and so like I always do.
Apportion.
Wow, it's a lot easier than I was making it, sorry. I don't know why my brain wanted to make it impossible for me. Of that amount, it has approved more than $1.4 billion for disbursement. So far, every expenditure has gone to benefit a company making electric vehicles, EVs, EV batteries, or associated battery components. The state spent more than 75% of its initial SOAR infusion within 7 months of just 2 deals. $666.1 million to General Motors and $100.8 million to Ford. Hi Diane, thank you for joining me, by the way. Each disbursement came in response to that company's pledge to update or expand its Michigan manufacturing footprint. In April 2023, the state authorized another $585 million in grants, $210 million to Ford for a battery plant, $200 million to battery manufacturer RNX Energy, and $175 million to Gotion Inc. for an EV battery component factory. These incentives are obstinately, I can't speak. I just can't do it today. I'm sorry. Supposed to pay off in the long run. They're supposed to pay off in the long run. By attracting companies to your state, you create good-paying jobs and further economic development down the line. But there is increasing evidence that those agreements are a bad deal for the states that make them, spending hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in order to create or retain a few thousand jobs here and there. Corporate welfare simply does not work, especially not the way its proponents say it does. If you read any Thomas Sowell, then you'll know. Government causes way more problems than it solves. We need less government. Even the numbers that Michigan quotes are unimpressive. For example, while Gotion pledged to spend $2.36 billion on its factory, Michigan's incentives so far have eclipsed $800 million, meaning the state's taxpayers are funding 1/4 of the entire project. That's why all Michiganders should be concerned. 1/4 of the project we're paying for, and we don't even want it here. While the company promises to create 2,350 jobs, the state's contribution to the projects break down to more than $340,000 per job. For the same amount, Michigan could pay each of those 2,350 employees' salaries for almost 6 years. GM is committed to investing at least $7 billion in the state across 4 sites and to create or retain 5,000 jobs. Diane says, good morning, and I watched you with Zach Payne on Red Pill. Thank you. I didn't. She says you did a great job. I really appreciate it. It was the first time I was on somebody else's live stream, and I had a blast, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I would definitely go on again and chat with him anytime. He's really good at what he does, so he made it, really comfortable for me, so I wasn't nervous at all. So I appreciate Zach, and I can see why he has as many subscribers over in Rumble as he does. He's done a great job, so he's paved the way for people like myself, citizen journalism. So I appreciate him, and I appreciate you for joining me. State and local governments have so far kicked in $824 million in incentives, $660 million in SOAR funding, plus a $936 million break on utility rates, a total investment of $2.426 billion in direct grants or lost revenue, or more than 1/3 of GM's entire pledged investment. Each of those jobs will cost Michiganders over $485,000 per job. Our Next Energy promises that its plant will create 2,112 jobs in exchange for $200 million in state money, a comparatively paltry state expenditure of just under $95,000 per job. Notably, that company raised $300 million in venture funding in February to help finance its Michigan factory. Ultimately, that method of financing projects it is far superior. Companies with billion-dollar valuations should shoulder the burden of funding their own development projects. Let them take the risks and, if successful, reap the rewards all on their own. Right, that's called free market. State governments can play a role in this process, but not by dispensing cash to favored firms. Rather, they should focus on making their states more hospitable to all businesses, perhaps by simplifying their tax structure or updating their infrastructure. Corporate welfare simply distorts the market, rewards companies that are politically connected, and wastes tons of taxpayer money. Thought this was a great article by Reason, Joe Lancaster. Thank you for writing that. Great information. One more about how much we're spending on EV technology. 2022 was a big year for EV battery plants in the U.S. How big? $73 billion big. And that's taxpayer dollars. Across the entire United States for this article, but 73 billion, and that was actually December of last year, so I'm sure now it's more since we've been giving tons of money this year for EV battery plants. These days, billion-dollar battery plants to make the massive batteries that power electric vehicles are announced so often that even if you follow the auto industry, it's hard to keep track of them all. Did you hear about the one from Corey Power in Arizona, Samsung and Stellantis in Indiana, the Chinese project in Michigan, the Norwegian one in Georgia, the Japanese one in South Carolina? Or, if you aren't impressed by $1 billion anymore, how about the $5 billion electric vehicle and battery project in Georgia? No, not that one, the other one. Wow. So there's 2 in Georgia. All these factories, plus even bigger ones from Ford and General Motors, are part of a remarkable industrial shift. Automakers are preparing for electric vehicles, currently around 6% of new vehicle sales in the United States, to conquer a huge share of the market in just a few years. That means companies will need a tremendous number of batteries. The think tank Atlantis Atlas Public Policy recently tallied all the announced projects located in the United States as part of research supported by an automaker trade alliance and provided updated numbers to NPR in December. All told, the group counted more than $128 billion of announced investments into EV plants, battery plants, and battery recycling, because battery recycling is a huge problem. In 2022 alone, companies announced more than $73 billion in planned projects, more than 3 times the previous record set in 2021. It's crazy. I wanted to share this with you. This is MIGardener. He is the one that I learned how to garden. My garden, I have everything but tomatoes and onions planted, and I use his method, and I appreciate him very much. He tried to build a greenhouse down in Detroit, and EGLE shut him down. And so I wanted to share probably 10 to 15 minutes of him explaining exactly what happened. And I think it's really important because they shut him down, but they might let Gotion, they're going to let Gotion, as of right now, that we know of, go through. It's completely illogical.
The mess. So we did all the clearing, then they slap us. So we spent approximately $260,000 to purchase the property. MIGardener did. So yes, over $250,000 was spent. Then the clearing of the property was another $50,000. So now we're $310,000. And then on top of that, once we were slapped with the violations, we spent approximately another $50,000 on what's considered, just consultant fees, essentially. Incredibly expensive. Most people would never think in their wildest dreams of just having this, and then essentially not even being able to do anything. Just essentially just, whoopsie, well, that's burnt money. Yep, that's literally what happened. We did all of our due diligence. We did everything right. Everything was done according to the book. And then EGLE came in and basically said, nope, sorry, we have other plans. Now I will show you, this is, again, this is not a fight that there's not even a fight that I care to have anymore. A lot of you just have been writing in wanting to see this because so many of you are sick and tired of things happening like this. And I'm sick and tired as well. Michigan is hands down, forget California. California, very, very strict when it comes to environmental regulations. And again, I'm the first person to say, save the trees. I'm the first person to say, save the wetlands. I'm the first person to say, stop, don't develop on legitimate wetlands. I'm the first person. So don't get me misconstrued with someone that's just, fill in all the wetlands, pro big business, let's just cover everything. No. This is a greenhouse operation that was going to be promoting growing food.
Which is exactly why EGLE shut it down. They do not want us to be self-sufficient, ladies and gentlemen. They don't. They want us to be reliant upon the government so they can force us to do whatever they want. And this is just one more proof for me. The fact that he's going to show you that it's right next to a mire, that there is no real wetlands there, and yet
and flowers
EGLE
and
shuts it
other
down.
things that help the environment. But also it was done on a site that was very, by most accounts, very safe to develop. So this is how EGLE decided that this was regulated. Now remember, we have to go back to what is considered regulatable, right? It has to be more than 5 acres. Ours was not. It has to be located within 500 feet of a lake, river, stream, etc. It was not. It has to be. It has to contain endangered species. It did not. As part of the inspection process, we had to comb basically the entire property to look for things that would be considered endangered species, both animals and plants. None were found, but because the property does have wetland species on it, like things like cattails or phragmites, which phragmites are invasive, by the way, which is crazy. But because of the type of soil that we have in this area, it's called glacial drift. And what happens, I'll pull up a map so you guys can see this. What happens is glacial drift essentially will carve out these different low spots that can hold water. The soil and where we're located is actually very heavy clay. Clay holds onto water quite well. And then what happens is on top of the clay sits things like topsoil or, just organic matter in general. This typically in a wetlands has what's called hydrology. It's how the water moves through the soil. And in a legitimate wetlands, what would happen is the wetlands would essentially take the water and it would filter through the wetlands to filter out any pollutants, things that could actually contaminate the water. It also acts as a carbon sink. So things like, carbon emissions, right? It can actually help to trap those things to actually to reduce greenhouse gases. So there's a lot of benefits to a greenhouse. Whereas if you notice, the clay on our property does not allow water to penetrate through to actually filter. So what do? To skirt around that, they just say, well, if water can somehow if it holds water for long enough and it contains wetland-like plants, could the water somehow enter a stream or a river of the Great Lakes? Because then that could be considered regulated. Okay.
So by what he's saying, obviously, the property that Goshen's trying to build on is considered regulated.
There's lots of they call it riparian, I believe. It's areas next to a lake that are not lake, but in fact land, but they're wet long enough to actually kind of filter out some of the things that enter the water. So I'm going to show you guys this. This is
riparian.
This is, and I say it is the craziest stretch. And by all accounts, I have many accounts of this where they said this was one of the largest stretches. They're really moving those goalposts as far as they can that they've seen in a long time. It's been also I have not asked them for permission, so I cannot use their name. However, many of the people we were working with said this is an absolute witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. And I'll show you how.
So again, you have to ask yourself why. Why would they be on a witch hunt for someone that's trying to build a greenhouse that is going to educate people how to grow their own food and have food that you can buy at the greenhouse?
So this, I'm going to show you this. This is their direct surface water connection. Okay. So
this is where it gets crazy.
So
crazy.
We're going to go to Google Maps. Okay. So remember, this is what it looked like prior to us. This was us prior to us clearing it, right? So mind you, major on-ramp, no issues there with wetlands. Somehow the wetlands just have a perfect line. I don't even know how that happens. That's really crazy. These homes must have a perfect line drawn, just flawless, perfect. So we're going to zoom in here. We're going to zoom in really far. See this little hand-dug ditch here? Well, this hand-dug ditch was done because in the springtime, it floods. It captures all the water from all this freaking off-ramp water flooding into the property. And then all these properties, which, they don't have a wetlands conveniently. They have grass. Seems pretty crazy. Well, all of the water that sits on our property, they just decided, well, we're just going to dig a hand ditch. The state of Michigan, folks, does not give a rat's behind if you or someone prior to you digs a ditch. Once it has water moving, it is now considered, it cannot be considered a water feature. It can be considered like a county drain that was hand dug or dug by machinery can actually regulate certain wetlands. This little ditch right here, little ditch runs around here and enters a drain, another roadside ditch.
Roadside ditch.
That roadside ditch runs along here.
This is crazy.
Runs along here. Mind you, this is what claims us as a wetlands.
A roadside
runs
ditch
along here.
is how he's
Seems
a wetland.
to just disappear. They didn't really care about that, but
again, you didn't see the beginning of it, but before he even bought the property, he made sure that he could build on it, that it was not wetlands. He did his due diligence. He paid all the money to get all of the different tests done. And I will have this linked if you want to watch the whole thing. I recommend it. You should check him out if you want to garden too, because he knows what he's talking about. But the fact is that this ditch prevented him from building the greenhouse. And yet, real 500 acres of wetlands, no problem. No problem. You can destroy it all, and we'll just move it.
It picks up. Another ditch. I got to zoom out because it's going to take forever. This ditch, this roadside ditch, goes all the way over here. Keeps on going. Keeps on going. Mind you, this is the surface connection that connects this to the wonderful Great Lakes of Michigan. This is the surface connection that this is the surface connection that cleans the water. Mind you, there's busy streets. How is the water clean if it's getting recontaminated? I mean, I asked them that. I said, all of the traffic, all of this road traffic, how is it that all this road traffic, this cleaned water that came off of our wetlands, that never even filtered through the soil, but in fact ran over the soil, how is this being cleaned? Well, no answer to that, of course. They're too above their own common sense. Comes all the way over here. Still's going. We're just getting started here, folks. If you think this is crazy, get ready. Buckle up.
Supreme Court ruling on wetlands.
Keeps going.
Overreact.
Keeps going. Oh, okay. All right. Now we got Angel Creek. Mind you, this is the first. We've already.
You see how far that is, by the way, from the creek? And I will bring up a picture right now.
Gone about 2 miles away from the property. Now we're into what's considered a creek. So it's gone from a ditch to a ditch to now a creek. This creek goes all the way, keeps going. We're just going to follow this for comedic relief. We're going to keep following this.
I mean, bring this over here. And you can see this is where Gotion is going to be. Even if it's on this side. I don't know right now. If it's on this side or this side, doesn't matter. Look at this. This is way closer than anything that he showed. He had a ditch for miles that went into a creek just like this. But Gotion is right next to a creek like that. So how is it possible that it can be built here, but this gentleman's greenhouse to provide food cannot be built?
Following this creek, and let's see where we end up. Let's keep going. Keep following this creek.
Okay.
Keeps going. Just got to keep
I'll
following
have to look
the
into
term.
that. Was
the
it
word
Michigan
Angel
Supreme Court?
Creek.
Or
Keep
like
it
EGLE?
going. Okay, still's going. More contamination from roads. All this keeps going. Just keeps going. Mind you, if anyone wanted to develop this property, this is a legitimate wetlands. This is a legitimate, 100% legitimate wetlands. It abuts a creek. There is plenty, I can see plenty of wet spots, plenty of phragmites and cattails. There's no reason why this should be developed whatsoever. This should be protected. This is absolutely beneficial.
Just like our property, or rather our land, is supposed to be protected. But that's only if EGLE really is about protecting wetlands. But it's not. It's just another way that they can regulate here in Michigan which development can go and which cannot. It's an economic development tool that controls sustainable development agenda.
Beneficial.
U.S. Supreme Court. Thank you. I will look into that.
This is a joke. This just keeps going and going and going. I'm going to zoom out so we don't take again forever here. So mind you, every scroll now is, we're talking hundreds of feet now. Just keeps going and going. This is just keeps going and going and going and going and going. We're just keeps, if you guys are laughing along with me, this is what killed almost a $500,000 project, up to 50 jobs that were going to be created, and ultimately probably took several years off of my life expectancy of stress and anxiety. So now we're in the Pine River. So now it went from a ditch to a creek to a river. Oh man, now we're getting somewhere, folks. We got to follow the Pine River. Now the Pine River goes all the way. Follow the Pine River. Okay, so now, mind you, all this is still not even, don't mind all the roads that go over top, all the contamination from all the tires and catalytic converters and all of that. But we keep going, folks. We just keep going. Keeps on going. Don't mind this massive plant here. This is just, this plant within, what is that, like 100 feet?
Wow.
Yeah, so this little 100-foot mark, that's like about 100 feet. Don't mind that. That's fine. That's totally fine. Totally fine. Nothing to see here.
But his greenhouse. So yeah, logic. I keep asking that question, but to me, there's no other reason.
And going.
Because he's showing all of these reasons why it doesn't make any sense.
A body of water that is the Great Lakes yet. Still in rivers. Still in the Pine River. Still getting close. And oh wait, did we hit a lake? Nope, we didn't hit a lake. This is the St. Clair River, folks. This is the St. Clair River. This goes all the way down to the St. Clair River. Mind you, all of that doesn't matter. None of that matters. These big coal plants over here, over in Canada, yeah, they don't matter. They don't matter. All the fresh water that they've, DT, all this, these are coal plants, all this coal, all of this, considered, dirty, terrible for the environment, all of that, none of that matters. None of that matters. Our little 3-acre thing is what matters. So I'm going to zoom out just because this St. Clair River goes for a long freaking while.
It only makes sense if they're after our food supply. Going. It only makes sense if they're after the food.
Until you hit a lake. And this, mind you, this lake is not a Great Lakes. This is considered an inland lake, not a Great Lake. This is Lake St. Clair, which goes through the Detroit River.
Which I'm sure is polluted.
Detroit River. Which then enters, we've reached it, folks. We've reached it. We've reached the lake, one of the Great Lakes. Lake Erie, folks. Lake Erie. Lake Erie. We've reached it. We've reached one of the Great Lakes, what they're trying to protect. But let's just show the insanity of this. If that wasn't insane enough, I'm going to show you where our property is in relation to the outlet into the St. Clair River. This is wild. So here's the mire. That's the mire that we're next to. This little, where my cursor is. And we're talking all the way over here. And that's the way the crow flies. Let's just test this out. So the way the crow flies, I'm going to measure this distance.
Yes. So I would like to know what you think.
And we're going
What do you think
to
about EGLE regulating this gentleman's
measure
greenhouse?
the distance, the way the crow flies.
And they're talking about
And we
allowing Gotion
are, let's zoom in
to
on this
destroy all
dandy,
those beautiful wetlands.
because I want you guys to see the utter insanity of this. How there's no way we could have ever
Where did you
foreseen
post
this
it,
ever.
Ryan?
Where the connection occurs is right here. And what is that number we see as the crow flies? That is, folks, that is 6 miles the way the crow flies. 6 miles the way the crow flies.
And Gotion
Straight
is
as an
within
arrow.
1 mile of the Muskegon River, which
6
goes into
miles.
Lake Michigan.
It's unfathomable. It is unfathomable how insane this is. So,
He's about to say
again,
something I want you guys to hear.
I am the first person to say protect the wetlands. I'm the first person to say that wetlands are beneficial. What we had is not a wetland. Not. It's not a wetland. And they can use whatever definition they want because it gives them power to do that. That's why a lot of them are in the job that they're in. They love the power to say, I can be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Simple as that. There's no public appeal. There's no public hearing. There's no appeals court, nothing. They are the law. They decide the law. They interpret it however they want.
Centralized
And
power.
I'm telling you that this
It's
is
dangerous.
plain and simple. Because I'll tell you, I got so much flack from so many people that said, well, it's a wetland. So, you got to follow the law. What is the law? The law is that a wetlands should connect to what is considered a waters of the U.S. You know what the waters of the U.S. is? The waters of the U.S. was put in place by the Clean Water and Air Act, believe it or not. And waters of the U.S. is considered navigatable waters. This is water that you can navigate. And what Michigan did is instead say, waters of the U.S. is anything that drains into a waters of the U.S. They don't even care. It could be 30 miles inland from a ditch to 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 a ditch. There is no stopping the insanity, folks. And so I'm, again, the first person to promote saving and preserving wetlands. But what we have is not a wetlands. It's just not a wetlands. Plain and simple, it's not a wetlands. And so waters of the U.S. is what really dictates wetlands, but Michigan took it a step further to expand on that. Now, again,
and yet they're putting all
I'm
these
a
EV
very
battery
reasonable
pits in.
person. And when we did the wetlands delineations, that was being rational and reasonable, step one. The rationale, I should say, behind that spot was that it was deemed very economically viable. It was a benefit to the community. It was a benefit to the local economy. And it did not have regulated wetlands. But they came on and said, well, we're going to regulate it. What do you do?
Right. You
They
can't
can do
fight
whatever
them.
they want.
Right. You can't fight them.
They are the law.
Well, you can.
And by some accounts,
but
they
not
be
by yourself.
lawless. Because they don't even follow, they write the laws as they go.
Yep.
And so it's crazy. When you see that this, because I hear it. Trust me, I hear it. People all the time say, well, yeah, well, you skirt, you rewrite the rules here, you rewrite the rules here. Before long, everybody's rewriting the rules, and there's no rules at all. No, the rules are extremely explicit, extremely explicit. And, EGLE and the EPA and the USDA and um, Section 303 is extremely explicit with the way that the law is written. The problem is you have these people, these field officers, that can interpret. They're given the power to interpret the law. It's not black and white. And so, because our property happens to hold water for approximately 2 months out of the year,
Thank you, Diane.
but is
I
bone
appreciate you
dry,
hanging out, and I'll see you next time.
bone dry for 10 months out of the year, it holds water just long enough because that clay basin to hold like wetlands type plants like some phragmites and cattails.
So I am not gonna watch the whole thing. I will link it down below. Check it out, and like I said, check out the rest of his channel too if you're into gardening. He has a lot of tips, and I've been watching him now like 7 years, so I feel really sorry for him. He is a Michigander, an entrepreneur who started a YouTube channel to teach people how to garden and has made a successful go at it so that he could actually build a dream greenhouse, and EGLE has shut him down. And so, with things like this going on, it just baffles the mind that Gotion can do what it's doing and EGLE, and we don't have any information, and it just drives me insane. But it's all logical if you know that we have been captured here in Michigan and we need to do something about it. So I have one more thing somebody shared with me. This is Section 4 of the Constitution of Article 4, Section 4. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this Union a republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion, and on application of the legislature or of the executive, when the legislature cannot be convened, against domestic violence. So we have, shall be guaranteed a republican form of government, which that defined by James Madison, we may define a republic to be, or at least may bestow that name on, a government which derives all its power directly or indirectly from the great body of the people, and is ministered by persons holding their offices during pleasure, for a limited period, or during good behavior. It is essential to such a government that it be derived from the great body of the society, not from an inconsiderable proportion or a favored class of it. That's what's happening here. A favored class is getting to develop, and poor MIGardener isn't. It is sufficient for such a government that the persons administering it be appointed, either directly or indirectly, by the people, and that they hold their appointments by either of the tenures just specified. So some people would consider this an invasion. China is not going to just drop bombs on us and declare war, okay? They are sneaky and they are spying on us. And war today is an information war. It is a propaganda war. And so there are people that could consider that these businesses coming in that are linked to the CCP a type of invasion. And so I believe in the Constitution. I swore to protect the Constitution from all enemies, foreign or domestic. And unfortunately, I think that, we all know the Constitution is being threatened all the time. We need to uphold it. So I thank you guys for hanging out with me today and checking out all the Gotion news. Thank you to everybody who went to that rally. I will inform you all about more rallies as they come up. I'm hoping that there'll be several more over the summer. We have until the fall now, at least that's what the Pioneer, Big Rapids Pioneer, said. So we have time. And again, I have faith. We can fight this. We can stop it. and it takes a bunch of us spreading awareness and supporting one another, and I think that we're doing a great job of that, and I thank each and every one of you for what you're doing. So I will see you probably next week. Only one video this week. Got to catch up on some things, but I have some big ones coming. A summary of what's going on with the 15-minute city in Grand Rapids is coming next week, and I'd like to talk about the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. I've been wanting to talk about it for a long time. It's extremely important for all of the development that's going on in Michigan, and we need to understand what is in that plan and where Michigan is going under Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So I'll see you guys in the next one, and thank you again.